I'm Brennan. Welcome back to Manager Mailbag. We have 3 amazing questions and a couple bonus questions. Let's jump into it. Question 1. Anonymous asks, how do I make sure my one-on-ones are valuable for my direct reports? I know one-on-ones are important, but I find it challenging to know if I'm actually providing value to my direct reports. Well, Anonymous, you came to the right place because that's literally our expertise. I think a couple things to focus on to make your one-on-ones more effective. First step, pause and reset. So the first thing is that you're already doing them. That's a great thing. But because you have to battle with the status quo of currently maybe bad one-on-ones, take a moment to pause, reflect, reset everything, and put them onto a path of great one-on-ones. So how do you do that? What I would do, cancel all of your existing one-on-ones, create a new recurring sequence for your team, maybe change the dates because you have that moment to change some of the dates and times. And in that new first one-on-one that you've set up with your team, use that as a time to kind of retro what's been going well with one-on-ones, what hasn't been going well with one-on-ones. Most importantly, you're going to want to focus on what is valuable for you in a one-on-one as a manager, and investigate and learn and ask questions, be curious about what is valuable for them in one-on-ones right now. That will do wonders in making time spent with your team more valuable. The second thing I would look into is making sure the time you spend with your team is spent in a very safe space. It's a really hard thing to do. It's probably doubly hard to do when you're a remote manager. But if you don't have what's known as psychological safety between you and your direct report, you're gonna be stuck. The feedback they share with you probably won't even be true. In fact, the things they're telling you are valuable might even be things they think you want to hear. So if you don't have a safe space already, you have to make sure you create one in the next period of time. The only way you're really gonna be able to accomplish that is to model the behavior, to show, not tell, that this is a safe space. The best way to show that it's a safe space is to be vulnerable first, right? Take that first step, be uncomfortable first. Demonstrating that this is a safe space will help that other person know that, okay, well, if they're being vulnerable with me, maybe I can be vulnerable with them. Lastly, iterate. Everything we've just done can change over time. People's moods can change, their careers can change, their roles can change, your role can change. As the quarters roll on, as the weeks roll on, your needs and their needs are gonna change. What they find valuable, what you find valuable is gonna change. It's okay to iterate on this format. I think what you wanna do, in fact, I know what you wanna do, is to not just change the format slowly over time without talking about it. You're gonna want to have that conversation and explicitly change those expectations. So if something's not valuable for you anymore, say, hey, I've been reflecting a little bit on the past couple weeks. I'm actually not finding too much value in some of these updates. I don't want you to waste your time on them anymore. Let's focus on some other areas. That explicit course correction will help ease everyone's concerns, right? And reduce workload. So those are the 3 things I would do to make sure your current one-on-ones go from being kind of blah to being the best meetings on your calendar. Kyle asks, I'm having trouble knowing what to do versus delegate to my team. Any tips? Yes, I do have a tip, Kyle. It's the Eisenhower matrix. So what you want to do is organize all of your to-dos and tasks and projects into this 2x2 grid, where you have urgent and not urgent, by important and not important. Once you have that laid out, organize all of your tasks into those 4 buckets. Anything that's important and urgent, for example, maybe finishing a client project, do it right now. Anything important but not urgent, schedule it in your calendar. Anything that's urgent, not important, delegate it to your team. Anything not important and not urgent, delete it. That's the tip. Check it out. See you later. Anonymous asks, the leadership in my company reliably prioritizes urgent, of the moment issues over impactful long-term core issues. How can I help them see the long-term cost of only addressing what is urgent? Well, Anonymous, what is going on? I think right off the bat, my first thought is, wow, this is an alignment issue. This is a difference of opinion between what you think of as important and what they think of as important. As a startup founder, I've experienced this so many times with various members of my team. So how do you fix it? Well, I think there's 3 steps, but before we get into step number 1, Let's just recognize that you're in an okay situation. You have the time of a leader and was willing to sit down with you and listen to your thoughts. They're there, they're understanding it. In your words, they're placating you, but they are trying to understand what is important to you and why it's important. The other thing that I think is good to recognize is that you actually have a vision for something that is 10 times better than what you're currently doing. The first thing I would do is flip the script here. Learn what your manager, what your leadership thinks is important, right? They've listened to you. They've then shuttled the conversation off to something else. I think what you want to do is take some time with them and understand and download all of what they think of as important so that you can start having that conversation in your head. They clearly think that urgent thing is more important than your important thing. You're losing that battle. Sit down with them in the next conversation. Have them placate to you for a little bit. Ask them why, be curious. I have a gut feeling that they're gonna be transparent with you. Second thing I would say is don't react, don't respond, don't debate. This first meeting is all learning. Download as much as you can, sit on it, take it away, take as many notes as you can, sleep on it, reflect. And I think what you wanna do is come up with a plan. How can your important thing and their important thing live together in kind of a harmonious world? And that's what I would call step 2. What's the win-win here? You have something that's really important to you. What's the win-win? That's kind of the strategy work that you have to do. Step 3 is codifying that plan into 90-day goals. I would use OKRs for this, kind of shoot for the moon. How can you really impress them in the next 90 days? So ask those questions, understand the motives behind the decision that are being made, even if you're not involved in those decisions. Question 3, Anonymous says, how do I prepare my team for inevitable management changes? There's been talk in the office that our team is a target for all cost-cutting measures. Fortunately, we're still here, but one can't help to think about it. However, there hasn't been any word from management about our team's fate. Is there anything I can do? Well, Anonymous, there is something you can do. In the question, I think there's a couple things that are like, this is like Eeyore. Morale's low, shoulders are drooped. You're talking about fate. Back straight, shoulders up. You can control your fate. There's 3 things you can do to really prepare your team and yourself for the environment you're in. The first thing you can do is an audit of your aspect of the business. Then 2, talk to your manager. And 3, go back and talk to your team. So what do I mean by audit? Really what I want you to do is go and take a stock of everything that's happening on your team, right? You want the most current, up-to-date information and opinions that you can form about your team and the stuff you're working on. What tools are you using? Are they must-have? And what you're gonna do, anything that's maybe not a need to have, cancel that. Even though we're kind of in a recessionary environment, that's stuff you should just do all the time. There's no environment where it makes sense to spend money on things you don't have to spend money on. Sometimes what just happens is we forget, we get lazy, whatever, we drop the ball, people come in and out, and we just forget about those things. So the other thing in that moment that you want to take a mental tally of is who are your absolute rock star A players on your team? The reason that's really important is you sort of have to promote and advocate for them in the next step. The next step, go and talk to your manager. You want to really do 2 things in this conversation. The first is let the manager know all of that audit work you just did, where the current status of everything is, the state, what you canceled, what you didn't cancel. And the second is you're going to want to get as much information from them as they're able to share. So in the audit side of things, let them know how much money you've saved annualized, right? Like how much this will save over the course of the year. And in that moment, I think you also want to make sure it's clear that like these people are really good. So the worst thing that can happen is your team survives, but it's half the size and someone in management picked the wrong half. You want to make sure that they're armed with the information to pick the right half. If this conversation feels maybe like it'd be weird, we actually have a really great template for managing up to your manager. I'll put the link in the description below, check it out, use it, and I think it'll solve most of your issues here. So the final step here is go back and talk to your team. The main thing you want to tell your team is that you're going to do the best job you possibly can in being transparent and open and honest and getting information to them as soon as information's available. And regardless what you get, just address the elephant in the room, have that conversation with them, and commit to being as transparent as you possibly can. That's what I would do.